Welcome to another special feature for the Heart of Neon Kickstarter campaign. This is a video I've called Three Questions. I recently had a chat with composer Tony Longworth with the goal of asking each other three questions about our individual skills to dig a little deeper and to get a little insight. And I think the results are sort of interesting. See for yourself. Enjoy.
Let me ask you another question. So, Harb Neon documentary captures the world of Llamasoft, indie development, Jeff, and everybody.
Yeah.
So, during the making of the film, what was the most surprising or memorable moment that you experienced, and how did it shape the final narrative? Was there anything that really just made you go, and kind of set that path?
Well, I mean, that's interesting. Because there's originally going to be a film about like the history of video games, and Jeff's story told them parallel, and it was going to be that. So like the idea was like Jeff is video game history. That was sort of the conceit, which is not true, but it was a fun conceit to play with. And then through the interviews, I learned more about what Neon was. I mean, I knew what psychedelia was in color space, and I'd heard about the virtual light company, but I didn't really understand what he was talking about. And then once it clicked. I mean, that's the story I want to tell. So I don't know. I mean, because I don't think like the Neon was like a surprise. It was like something that Gary had tried to explain to me at least twice before. And it's just me like getting out of bed, my brain suddenly waking up. Oh, that's what he meant. So
it was kind of always there.
So it wasn't that story, but I guess it was the interview with James Cope, which sadly is not as much in the film as it was. James is a cohort of Gary Liddon. They both, Gary Liddon formed a company called Ruffian Games with Gareth Noyce, and they brought on Jim Cope as a producer. This is years and years ago. And like now, that company is Rockstar Dundee. So that's who James Cope is now. He's a producer for Rockstar. Yada yada yada. I James was one of the first interviewees who got on board. One of the first 8. And I did this interview in Dundee in the foyer of the building where Rockstar has their offices now. And he tells me the story of the Alt Wallace rave. They keep referring to the Alt Wallace rave. It was a town fair that they sort of like co-opted the tent and the DJ equipment, played their set with VLM before it was called Neon at the time on the inside of the tent, and then the locals went, you know what, your music sucks, get out of here. So they just pack up and en masse go. Because the point was like this was like the first public showing really of VLM for the Yak Yak people. So a bunch of people from the message board showed up, James being one of them, and so they get kicked out of the tent at the fair. So they go back to Jeff's house, and people just pitch their tents in his backyard, and they set up Neon VLM in his front room, and they just party all night.
That's crazy.
So that's crazy. But there's a moment where James is at the back of the room watching Neon being done, VLM and the crew doing their thing. They rehearsed. This is after the Warp Records thing, which is in the film. So they were slick. They really had it down tight. So they were one with the light and the music, and it was just great. And James is at the back of the room, and he is overcome with emotion, and just nails him in an intimate place. It's his heart pours out. He's crying, and he tells Jeff it's the most important thing he's ever seen. And it's a really touching story when he tells it. And then I mentioned it to Rick Alpin, and Rick's like, "Oh yeah, he cried like a baby." So but so I'd heard these stories about these guys having little parties and playing with a version of psychedelia is what I heard, but this was something else. This was profound. I mean, the sobriety notwithstanding, I've never heard anybody being moved like that by a video game. I mean, I have since, but not before that point.
No.
It really sort of, I realized I was onto something. I didn't know what it was. And I think what that film, because I was planning, after I did those interviews, I came back to the States, I did an edit and did the Kickstarter, which didn't happen, and then I had enough money so I could do a second round of interviews. And what I was going to do was track down these people, these guys who had done the VLM thing. I hadn't spoken to Gareth yet, or Jedburgh, or Rick for that matter, and never did track down Sick Boy, wherever you are. Let me know where you are. So, so I was going to go back to the UK and like sort of like tour around like the southeast of England, and then do another visit to Dundee and get Gary again to fill in the blanks.
Right. Yeah.
But then COVID happened, so I couldn't do that. And but at that point, even before the end of 2019, I knew it was going to be about this. I just didn't know what it was going to be yet. But I knew there was something in that story. Something about that intersection between Jeff and his audience doing this thing that he made that makes this other thing. You know, and then it's part of this other thing, like Gary Penn had said, like playing video games is sort of like a performance, and Twitch has made that really a thing, right?
Definitely.
So there was that. So that was. It wasn't that I was surprised by Neon. I was surprised by how intensely some people felt about it.
Yes,
that was a real surprise.
Yeah.
And when you hear somebody talking like that, you don't. You chase it down as a filmmaker. It's like that's where the juice is at. Let's figure out what these emotions mean, right? And then figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting.
And also when I told Jeff that I wanted to focus on VLM more, he perked up. So
really? Yeah.
Oh, it's you want to make the film about VLM? Well, that's a different story. So it was like not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's sort of like a feedback loop where like the more I heard about it, the more I was encouraged to pursue it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it ended up, it encouraged me. It was like the One Ring. The One Ring wanted to be found.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's Jeff's passion for
Jeff's still doing it. I mean, iRobot, right? It's very much that. Even if it's just like a subset of what VLM will ultimately be able to do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a cut down version that you can control and have fun with, but we know there's bigger, better things coming.
Anyway, is it your question next? I've already lost it. Yes.
You to me. Yeah.
All right. So you have seen every version. Almost. We haven't seen the current version, but it's not that different. Every version of Heart of Neon so far. Is there anything that's been removed from the last version of you saw from the film that you sort of wish could still be in the film?
Does that make
sense?
A really good question. I thought about this, and it's really weird because all these different versions. So that first version you sent me, was it 3 hours something? Is that right?
It was very nearly 4 hours. 3.5 hours.
And I remember watching that, thinking, this is amazing. Weird things happen. All these versions exist in my head at the same time at the moment, which is very strange. And then you're like, I'm gonna have to get this down to 2 hours and something. Then I'm gonna have to get it, and you keep reducing it. And every time I'm like, but you're gonna lose stuff. And then the next version comes out. This is a really strange thing. And I get the next version and I sit down and watch it and go, this is perfect. I don't feel like there's anything missing. So the last version I saw was Zap Live last year, which is close to what the final version is going to be, I'm guessing. And I was at the back of the room when it was being screened. And I just loved it. And I didn't think, oh, that's a shame that this isn't in it. Or, it just tells the story beautifully. So there's two answers here. So firstly, I don't think there's anything missing that you should put in. Secondly, I'm a completist movie geek. And I want everything as extras as well. So the answer is there's nothing missing and there's everything missing. I want to see all the other stuff. So it's a bit of a crop out of that. You know what I mean? I'm like, I am happy. Happy with the final.
It's a bit of a mean question because I don't expect you to be as familiar with the film as I am. That's just impossible. I fucking planned it, shot it, and then edited it for a number of years. So
you've lived with it, really.
I can tell you that the bit that I regret not being in the film, and the bit that I keep getting, I continually get criticism from Giles is Polybius isn't in it enough, and the Polybius bit that was in the film is my favorite bit of behind the scenes stuff because it's the bit of them making a game that I have the most footage of, and their description is the most engaging. And then I've got a lot of interviewees, like the guy Mike Thompson, the American freelance journalist who did the review for the Washington. Was it Washington Post?
Blimey,
some newspaper of note. He did the Polybius review, so he's talking about how Polybius it's a trick, it's a trap. Because you want to go through the gates because it's a really exhilarating sensation. But the more often you go through the gates, the more impossible the game becomes.
Yeah, that risk reward. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is 100%. That's the movie I wanted to make.
Yeah,
the film that we've got, I think, is a better film for more people.
Yeah.
Everybody, go sign up for the Heart of Neon Kickstarter. Link is in the description. Thank you very much. Cheers.